Hey everyone, this is Ethan. Before we get started with this really great episode on the importance of expression and how it plays into menswear and making outfits, I do want to let you know that there is something kind of going on with Spencer's desk. It was definitely wobbling, and we did tell him during the recording that it was happening, and no matter what he did, it kept coming up. And so yeah, you might hear that during the episode. We're really sorry about that. Hopefully it doesn't detract from the episode and your experience listening to it, but yeah, it's definitely there. I also want to say that this is the last episode for these past 3 months. So we'll be taking a break for the month of April, and we'll be back in June. I'm also taking a vacation in the week of June, and so we might switch up our schedule. That just means that maybe an episode will come up, bleeding into the fourth month in that second period. But yeah, don't worry, we'll make up for it. It means you'll also get a cool episode this coming year about my Italy trip when I'm going on vacation with my parents for my mom's wedding. But yeah, I just want to let you guys know about that. If you guys want to keep up with us, again, go to patreon.com/sounddirection. That's kind of where the active community of subscribers are, and also bonus episodes. There's going to be a bonus episode about Spencer's recent trip to New York as well. But yeah, just want to let you guys know about that at the top of the show, and I think we're ready to talk about expression. Again, read my article about it, because it fills in a lot of the gaps of what we don't talk about. It's really a great, important topic for us. I'm really excited to kind of share this with you guys. So yeah, without further ado, MJ, you can press play now. Yeah. Oh, yep. Do it now. All right. Bye-bye.
Hello, baby.
Actually, I don't know what this is.
Are you peeking behind the curtain? This is not a video podcast. You can't start out with. So for the audience, we're sitting in a Zoom call, and we're trying to figure out what the cold open is, everyone's favorite part. And Ethan just comes in here, and he has his hands in front of his face and is pulling it apart like there's a curtain.
Okay,
are you gonna stick you? I have to do this because, again, we're not a video podcast. This is the only way people are gonna get the bit.
A VP.
Yeah, we should have a guy who a fourth mic on the podcast who just describes the physical actions we're doing in like a soft voice behind us.
It's like
Ethan
it's
walks
like
up to
the reverse. Yeah,
we're always walking up and away from our webcams too. When we're recording, we're constantly getting up and walking around the room,
moving around.
So you guys are really missing a huge part of the whole podcast. We're so animated. Sometimes we have costumes, props.
Well, I want to get to that stage. I think I said I want the internet celeb treatment, like the fandom treatment, where some people will animate or do animatics of comedy Bang Bang scenes, right?
I'd be fine with that. When you said I want the fandom thing, I was imagining more people are gonna write fanfics about the three of us getting trapped on an island and having sex. I don't want that. To be clear, I don't want that at all. Please don't. I do not endorse any of that stuff. We've
made that joke a bunch of times.
Well, because the people on the internet are all freaks and perverts. It's just
Yeah, what's up, freaks? Hey guys, what's up, my freaks and perverts?
That's the names of our fans, freaks and perverts.
Coming to you live from my
Pervert Central
Stalin Direction Studio.
Pervert Central, PV and the PC.
Oh man,
pervert.
Yeah.
Perverted? Is that how a Filipino person would say it? Spencer can't say that because
I can't say that.
That would be racist. Okay, the reason why I did the opening the curtain thing is I remember now. It wasn't going to be a bit, but I know why. I know why it was in my head, and so this one.
Yeah.
There's a scene in Creed 3 where they're at some place and there's a bead, one of those bead door separator things.
Yeah.
And so Jonathan Major's character walks through it, and then So I'm like, okay, it's real, it's physical, right? And then
yeah, it's real.
it's real. And then
is there a lot of stuff in that movie that's not real?
Okay.
Like, does he like pass through things?
Let me tell you. So you know how cameras will go through the window?
Oh, okay, yeah. And then you're like, oh, it's the trick because cameras can't do that.
Yeah, like that means that the window is fake. Like it's a CGI.
Oh wait,
window.
so the camera went through and the beads were pushed aside by the camera.
No, that's what I thought was gonna happen.
Okay.
So like, again, it was. Welcome back to movie mistakes. But now, yeah, it's like, Jonathan Majors walks through, then Apollo Creed, Adonis Creed, Michael B. Jordan's character walks through, and then the camera just goes through, and I'm like, hold on a second, those were real.
I kind of like, movie corner again. I kind of like when the camera is kind of more like physical, I guess. Like I wish I could think of an example, but there are a couple movies that I've seen where it's not like, obviously it's not like a documentary type thing, but it's like the camera kind of struggles to find the action for a second, as though it is like just a documentary and being filmed live.
You mean like in how Star Wars, I think a couple times in the sequels, where like there's a ship and like the camera will like pan to it and then zoom in the same like it doesn't cut, it goes. I kind of
like that. Yeah, that's kind of fun. I also just I really like physical zooms and like when stuff moves really fast and you could kind of see it shake for a second. I like
you're just kind of like a
remembering
thing.
Well, yeah, I just I like when there's when you can tell that there's a person behind the camera sometimes. Not always the shaky cam, but
Yeah, this is a totally real thing. When I was watching Creed 3, this is not sponsored by Creed 3 at all, even though Michael B. Jordan did the Ralph Lauren thing.
Yeah, Michael does B. Jordan.
There's a B?
No B's.
Yeah, by the way, Michael B. Jordan in the film. So Apollo Adonis Creed is sponsored by Ralph Lauren in the movie.
Really?
And then in real life, Ralph Lauren obviously gave him like the clothes, because I was watching it. I'm like, oh, these look good. And then when he's driving, like contemplating life, he drives by a poster of him, like it says Ralph Lauren, and it's him.
He gets
I'm like, okay, so
from
it's
Ralph,
both.
And he's like, hey, I'm at my ranch. I can't remember what Ralph Lauren sounds like. Hey, Michael B. Jordan. Probably doesn't sound like that. Yeah, I'm Ralph.
He does wear a lot of, not to make this a Creed movie style. It's like a free bonus episode for you. His uniform in the film is like this like tonal hoodie with like a suit that has a throat latch on it. Also, but it's not like a tweed suit. It's like a regular like brown kind of suit. He does wear it, unfortunately, with like the white sneakers, very athleisure meets tailoring kind of a thing. But then during some scenes he does wear a pinstripe suit.
Ooh.
So very, very Ralph.
Very Ralph.
Very Ralph Lauren. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
I wasn't going to say what the point was. I forgot. I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer DSO.
I'm MJ.
And it's Style Direction, a menswear podcast with stuffiness. My final point on that was, every time I watch movies, I'm like, yeah, that's like these kids who play who play the younger version of them. It's not an exact match. Like they're not de-aged, right? Like this is, and I'm like, oh, like since I'm aware of that, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a movie. And so that kind of plays with the whole like a camera, like there's a camera guy here. Like this is not like, I mean, movies are fake. Like it's not like it's not how real life works.
Movies are fake, people. Well, let me be the first to tell you.
I mean, those people with the train.
Exactly.
Oh my god!
Do you remember the first time you saw that? I screamed as loud as I could.
I wonder when the first time I actually saw like it must have been a compilation or something. Yeah. I actually think, okay, now not to bring it back to Christianity and back, but I do think it was seen. It was like there was probably some sermon about like why Hollywood is evil, and it's like, see, like back then, people were so scared of movies because of trains, and nowadays movies are showing you sex and drugs. See, it's the same thing, and I feel like I saw it in a compilation for that actually. Yeah.
About how evil movies are because of the Méliès brothers or whatever. Or sorry, Lumiere brothers, George Méliès. I was thinking about Hugo, because that's
his fake name in that one. Or is it
Sure.
his fake name, or is he playing with the real character?
No, so no, it's Ben Kingsley plays George Méliès, but the Lumiere brothers did the train arriving at the station thing.
Oh, that's what you mean.
They show George Méliès seeing it in that movie, and I thought the depiction of how people were freaked out was like pretty realistic, because it's not anyone screaming and running out. It's just a huge projected screen, and the train comes barreling forward, and everyone's like, "Whoa!" for a second, and it's like, okay, I feel like that's probably the reaction.
Not like, get me out of this,
because it's like they realized after a second that obviously the train's not going to hit them. But if you were born in like the 1860s or something, you had never seen a moving image like that projected on a screen. You might jump a little bit. I think it's understandable.
If you defrosted a caveman.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm wondering if we're going to like ever have that for us. Like, what's gonna be like a crazy like a humanoid robot maybe?
Well, no, I mean, you've seen the videos of people like putting on like VR headsets and then like freaking out and jumping into their coffee tables and shit like that.
I feel like so we're still in that era.
Yeah, I feel like that's happening. Maybe there'll be some. I saw this big. I saw this thing on Twitter where it was this big like neon sign. It was these really fast spinning blades.
Yeah.
That were like that created like a hologram effect of like a giant sandwich. And it's
nice.
And it's like, I mean, maybe that you reach up to grab the sandwich and then your arm just gets chopped off by the blades. That's the next step.
Aren't they usually like soft ones though? They're like the little like
in my scenario they're completely metal blades. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Like
plastic.
It's a trap. This is a trap for home invaders. Like just in your front door, there's just a giant floating sandwich, and any burglar.
And it looks so real.
It's gonna be like, whoa! Yeah, don't mind if I do.
Okay, I was gonna say you don't want it to be like a diamond or.
No, it's got to be a sandwich. That's the only thing it can project.
You think like, oh, how nice of these people to leave a sandwich over here Russian? For me to eat. Oh, I was doing New York actually.
Okay, it sounded a little bit Russian. I like this character, the Russian cat burglar.
Who's always hungry.
I want the sandwich. Now it's like heavy weapons.
Eat the sandwich.
Yeah. Okay, that's 10 minutes.
All right, done. Helgo. Hello.
Helgo.
Welcome. Today we are going to be talking about something very near and important to me. It's called clothing, and I love it so much.
We're talking about clothes today?
Yeah. So here's the full backstory on this episode. So I was in New York a couple of months ago in October, something like that. And of course, I always go to Strand Bookstore. I always go to their vintage book section. And you guys know me, I love reading critical essays and philosophy stuff, usually about art, not just like general stuff. Okay, I'm not talking about.
I hate reading general stuff.
Yeah. General stuff, but I found this book called The Corded Shell by Peter Kivy. Who knows?
It's like
he's
Shell
dead.
Cordovan.
Yeah, and it's about musical expression, and I thought it was really cool. And I was trying to read it. I was like, maybe there'll be something in here that we can relate to menswear because we're running out of steam. Just kidding, not really. We've interviewed 2 of the 3 hosts on here. Yeah, there's plenty of content left over.
Listen, we're like a steam engine over here. We're making steam as we go. Is that how steam engines work?
You also need coal.
We got the coal right here, baby. I'm pointing to a pile of coal in my bedroom.
Thanks, Santa.
Yeah. Yes, thanks, Santa. You fool! This is exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so I was reading it, and I was having coffee with a friend. I'm not sure if she's listening to this, and if she is, I'm sorry for calling you out. But I'm just trying to read, and she straight up says, "Ethan, what makes a good outfit?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to do right here? And then it was like, it became a whole, like, I didn't even get to fucking read. I didn't even get to start the book. Yeah. Like, it was like about like, what does good mean? And, we've already kind of talked about taste. And I said, okay, well, I think that there's, a good outfit is about executing your taste really well. And she goes, okay, do you believe that there's good or bad taste? And I go, well, I know that I kind of hedged around that in the episode that we did about it. I think we kind of like recanted that, or as I was like writing my blog post, that like I definitely think that there is developed taste. Like I don't think that things should be shallow. Like when we talked about with cool, like cool should be built on something that excites you and that has references not just about one dimension of like, oh, it's popular or it's got mainstream appeal. So we've been kind of hinting around this, and so as I read the book, I'm like, actually, this is a really good framework. And we're not going to talk about the book completely because it's kind of very musically focused, but I definitely think it provides framework of what makes a good outfit. And my thesis after reading the book is that expression is what makes an outfit good. And it might not be the only metric for a good outfit, but it definitely should be considered as one of the biggest metrics for it, you know? And, well, you got to hear some birds.
Yeah, that's a little bird talk.
Bird talk, BT's.
The original Twitter over there.
Yeah. But we've been talking about, you know, whenever we talk about outfits, we always talk about, like, you know, especially after we've interviewed both of you guys, it's about like kind of expressing who you are, right?
Yeah.
Spencer, you talked about like you know, you look like a guy who likes history. You know, you look like, you know, when people find out that you're a journalism major, that you're, you know, your editor in chief, they go, okay, that makes sense. You know, and I think with MJ, like, you know, you can literally wear your yeah, like, you know, like those merch T-shirts that we have, all like all the fandom stuff, but you also kind of like evoke some ideas, like the bold colors, like main character energy, but like, you know, by being very masterful use of color, like that's expressing something that you like.
Yeah.
And so, again, after doing those stuff and reading this book, I'm like, this is what I think. This is what I think makes an outfit
and
good.
And I think it's like, you know, something I really believe. It ain't what you do; it's the way that you do it.
Yes.
I mean, like I think I've said this before, and I think this is something I think about a lot. But like, I know I think I said this on my episode, but it's like if you break down my average outfit, it could, like, if you just describe it in like not too much detail, it would literally sound like it could sound like a J. Crew like poster, like catalog image or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, you got a tweed jacket, jeans, and like a chambray shirt or something.
Yeah.
But it's all about I don't know, it's about like the curation and the little details and like all the extra stuff that goes into it that makes it special, at least to me.
Yeah, and that's kind of what matters, right? Like what if you think it's special, it's like it's also like it's like self curation, it's self expression. Like how are you choosing to put all of these tastes together and, you know, and make it into a cohesive outfit that makes sense for you? And I think that that's a good way to talk about like what actually makes a good outfit, because I think the more and more menswear or fashion in general becomes a hobby, a lot of the metrics that we used to think about, like, oh, are you dressed appropriate, like formality, kind of goes out the window when you can like make your own context. And with our belief of like, you know, making your own occasions, like it doesn't matter if you're overdressed for the coffee shop, because you could always say, oh, I'm meeting up with friends later, or I just wanted to wear this today. So like it doesn't really matter like context as much anymore. What matters is kind of just the execution of the idea. Because to kind of hint at the book here, when you think about like art or with music, these things kind of exist because of the creator. And so like it kind of matters, like it doesn't matter like when you're making an art piece, it's not always that you're making it to be put into a collection, right? There sometimes the art exists in its own context, so it becomes, okay, the art, how can you judge the art as good for its own merit, and then later on you can place it. So it's like for us, the expression matters first, and then the context matters like secondary to an extent. But today we're going to be talking more about the expression part of it, because yeah, I feel like we've needed a metric to kind of judge outfits that acknowledges what we assume as subjectivity, while still providing parameters for subjectivity. We can't just say like, you know, because not to be too elitist, but like we don't believe that everything can go.
No, I think I don't know. I don't want to say that we've been too nice, because I don't think that's true. I think we're generally nice guys. But I think we don't really talk about like good versus bad, I guess. Like I feel like we maybe like shit on
good and evil.
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we spend like 20 minutes shitting on like small collars every single episode, and I just don't remember.
Small collars,
But-
skinny pants.
Yeah, but
Low rise.
yeah, we
Short
never
jackets.
really talk about, like, I don't know, I feel like we don't really talk about the, like, yeah, what makes something good or what makes something bad, because I think there is a difference.
Yes, and that's where this book comes in. So, this book, it starts off by kind of acknowledging music criticism, where it talks about how when people write about music, they usually like they ascribe it like expressive features, like that this music is sad. And a lot of people don't like that. At least at the time, they're saying like that doesn't count because music can't be sad. It can't feel anything. And the purpose of the book was to kind of build up a reason for why this expression or expressiveness, because maybe it's not that it's sad. It is expressive of sadness. Why that is a valid point of criticism, and why it is also a good making feature of music. And when I was reading that, I was like, this kind of makes sense. Like I'm like, like. Why when we say, oh yeah, that looks like, we don't really say, oh, that's like, we do say it's a good outfit, but we're like, oh yeah, we look slouchy today, right, or whatever, this looks like trad. And like, why is that make it good to us? Like, why do these qualifiers make sense? And so the biggest part of the book is that it's about being expressive of something. Like, everything in the world has some kind of expressiveness. It's either doing it directly or we can feel it by seeing it. And one of the biggest examples is like this Saint Bernard's face. Like, it looks sad, but like, why does it look sad? And so that brings us to two theories, which is would kind of go hand in hand, which is like contour versus convention. Contour is how its expression is similar to other things. So like a Bernard's face looks sad because it looks like a face that a human makes when they are sad. And so, because of the similar literal contour of the face, we go, okay, that kind of makes sense. So we get something
Just
from it.
Pattern recognition.
Yeah, exactly. And then convention is more so like, okay, it's aligned with things just because like over time, contour does become convention. Like we go, okay, well, if we see like, it's just a frowning face is you're sad, like that. It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, because this makes me think of the part in the fucking W. David Marks book that we just did a couple months ago, where he talks about how it, like, in a lot of Western cultures, like when songs are written in like the minor key, it's like, oh, this is like sad and somber. But then there are other cultures where that is not the case, where there's a cultural understanding that songs in the minor key are like happy or like celebrative and stuff like that. So I not necessarily bringing that up to refute it, but it is just kind of interesting how these how these kind of like innate features could just be entirely like cultural, like what we think of as like, oh, this just makes something like, this it makes something sad. It's just like a cultural understanding of that.
No, yeah, actually the book does go into that. And so it does bring up why is it that Western culture, it's because Western music is built on minor and major modes of writing. And there are different modes in different cultures where it can sound minor, which is, if you were to, with theory to notate it. But I think the feature of other cultures' music is that it relies on different stuff. And in particular, there is I forgot, it's like not micromodal, it's like a different
micromodal fabric.
Yeah, maybe that's the wrong thing I'm thinking of. If I look up minor, where the hell is this? I didn't even type the word minor. It's like a thing where like, just because like they're written in a different mode, like it just means something different, and their ears are attuned to it. So it's like if we played them one of our songs, they wouldn't feel the same emotions that we do, and vice versa. And there is something here that we'll get into later about competency in music, which I feel like will be definitely applied with fashion. But yeah, the book kind of just talks about like kind of likening and figuring out why expression is important and how it comes about, because it's like there's different other theories of like, is it because these things remind you of something else, does it stir that up in you? Is it like when you hear music, is music, talking about metaphysics here, like is it like physically playing the chords in your brain that make you feel this way? Just like, is it pressing the right, like, I guess, nodes in your brain to be like, okay, this, when you hear this combination, does it make you feel this way?
And I think,
yeah.
Well, I think, going into like this is why, one of the reasons why I think it's so important, even if you're not just going to wear like vintage clothing or vintage styles, I think it's a really good, it's really important to have just a knowledge of like fashion history and progression and stuff like that. Just so you can get better at expressing these different qualities in like more, I don't know, like more
specific
subtle
ways.
More specific ways. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and the thing is that it all depends on like, I don't want to say education, but like whether or not you have the references to do it, right? Like, I think that with some music, right, you can say like this music sounds angry, but people express anger in different ways. And it depends on like what images come up, you know? And it is kind of hard to think about that because everyone has, again, different images that arise. So it's hard to kind of provide parameters on that. Because he says here, like, emotions are always directed at something. You don't just feel it. You feel it directed towards something. And so, the book goes into a lot of the stuff. I honestly, it's really good, but it is pretty dense, and it is very, like, philosophical, where, like, he just has, like, long questions that he's, like, then he, like, answers it, and I'm like, damn, I feel like I'm lost a little bit here. Yeah. But, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here about, like, you know, how music will literally have, like, choreography, or there's a physiognomy of it, where like there's like a physical characteristic of like, you know, like when things are like jaunty, like when you feel happy, you feel like you want to bounce around, and then there's music that literally does that. And so it's like there's something like, okay, like that's why it's good, because it can be expressive of those emotions. And we'll talk about later about how clothing might be able to also do that. And he says here that there's no right way to listen to music, but we are describing on how we listen to it. And there's something there also about where when we talk about how things are expressive of something, and how it's present all over everything. It's like how a kid can hold a stick and a cloth, and it can be a doll to them. Like you can add on more items to make it more humanistic, but like, for the purposes of like a baby, like it to them, it is a human, you know what I mean? So like there are these things that humans can recognize, you know. Same thing with sounds, for like, why does a bird sound like a flute, right? Like it just is, you know, like we were able to kind of get this. And so his point here is that if the criteria of human expression is public and generally well known, we can consider it objective and slightly immune from philosophical skepticism. So the criteria of expressiveness within music should also be in the same way, where if things are just kind of conventional to that sense, and he doesn't think that it's like a fallacy to assume that. And I kind of agree. We're like, to a general person, you know, like you could like if you're, to bring this to fashion a little bit, like if a collar's buttoned all the way up, it would look stiff. Like it like I don't have to explain to you that like, oh, it's reminiscent of like military uniforms. Like it just physically you're covering up, and you know what I mean? Like it's there. But yeah, so we have contour and convention. These are like the two main theories of how music is expressive that kind of ring through. And it's, what is expressive is just, it has to example it. It's the fact that music resembles other expressive behavior and is heard as expressive of something, and it's natural. It's both natural and conventional. And one of the things that I really liked is your failure to read the expressiveness of something doesn't mean that things aren't expressive. It might just mean that you are not equipped to understand that reference.
You're damn stupid.
You're not competent yet.
Yeah.
Well, I think. Well, yeah. Sorry. Finish your thought.
I was gonna say here, like, he says here, we might be failing to read the very musical conventions that make it possible to hear the sounds as music in the first place. And here he's referring to, like, you know, saying that, like, you know, like native music or other culture music is like not the same as Western music, and it lacks expressiveness. It just means that you just don't hear it. And if you've grown up with that training, you would be able to hear like all of like the chromatic stuff, all the in between notes that happen a lot with other cultural music, because like, you know, there's like semitones, like individual, like tones in between tones, in between notes. And so like if you're not trained to hear that, you might not be hearing the nuance. And so just like we can't just say that expressiveness doesn't exist because we can't hear it. Like you can't hear, you might not be able to pick apart all of the individual notes in a string section. You might be like, okay, that one's doing the harmony here or whatever, but you can still read it. Like,
no, I mean, I think that's, and I think that's I mean, obviously, since we're relating this to fashion, we agree on this, but I think that could be said for, like most, like arts. I well, not even like just arts. I'm sure it can be done for like, it's like, it's the more you know, the better you are at recognizing like quality of something. Like I know I could say this for clothes. Obviously, it's like, a couple of years ago, it's probably recorded on the podcast. I'm like, I don't care, how things are made. I just care about how it looks. But now it's more kind of like the opposite, I guess, where it's like, I don't like, even if something looks really cool, if it's shitty and it's going to fall apart, I don't want it. And I mean, I know it's been the same thing for me with like, as I've, gotten more, as I've like written more, I'm like better at recognizing like what good writing is. Same thing with movies, and like, as I whatever I learn more about, like, it's just easier to say, like, to see what's good and what's bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's, first off on that one, it is kind of hard when you have our taste and then things are also bad. Like it's difficult to find something that looks really good and it's also bad. I will say, excuse me, take a shot. That when it comes to like to milsip and repro, maybe you do fall into that issue a lot, where like it's like a really cheap repro. But with tailoring, kind of hard to make it shitty and also pass the Ethan test of looking good.
Yeah, because that's the thing is like, in order for it to look right, it has to be constructed right, and you can't really fake that.
Yeah. But I think that also the thing about competency, about like you have to be able to hear all these subtle stuff. I think it's also like if you're just aware of other fashion subcultures or like what a designer is trying to do, I feel like that also leads to more expression versus like a very narrow-minded view.
Well, because I think the more you know, like, about how something, like, if you know about how music is made, or if you know about how like a clothing company makes like a collection, or if you know about how like a movie is made, it's easier to like get in the mind of the artist or whoever created it. And like I feel like a lot of times people have this instinct to assume that they are like smarter than the people who made something.
Yeah.
When they just don't really know much about it.
Yeah.
And again, what's the thing that people always talk about on Reddit, where the less you know about something, the more you think you know about something.
I've heard of that. Forgot what that is.
Yeah, well,
it's like some paradox or whatever.
It's like it's like the bell curve or whatever.
It's something. I think there's a B in there. There's a B.
There's a B?
Yeah, it's pretty scary. But yeah, stop being a dumbass is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So moving on, he also talks about the importance of lyrics, and he knows that not all music has lyrics. There's a philosopher who I think says that music is formless without lyrics, which I definitely disagree with. But it's this particular one that he's citing says that pure instrumental music is an expressive surd, an unconsummated symbol. I'm like, damn, like that's a pretty
lame.
that's a pretty strong way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
But he says that like, sometimes music is formless. It's a protean expressive clay, in which I think text can imprint properties on it. And I think there's something there about like adding extra features to an output that help it, like I think like things naturally have some form of expression, but things can be more bland than others and lead themselves to be expanded upon. He does talk about, which I'll definitely get into with fashion, about distinctions, where can music be melancholy or sad, or is it just not joyous? And he think like these distinctions are rough and they're not non-existent, but he thinks that it makes no sense to make these distinctions, because he thinks that it's an ideological like trap just to get caught up in semantics. And so text can help contribute to the expressiveness of the work, which can literally explain things. But then sometimes if the text changes the meaning of the song, but the music doesn't change, which are you really hearing? Like, you know how like you can have like a chorus or the second stanza of a song, and it can be sad, but the music isn't sad because it's the same music the whole time. It's like, oh, what? How do you describe that music now? You know, do you have to separate the lyrics from the thing? So it's like you have to consider the whole work altogether. Um, and yeah, so and the last part is just kind of about beauty of it all, which is probably kind of closer to like the good making quality, where as a whole it is an artwork, and expressiveness is the beauty of it. It is not necessarily that it is not necessarily that the piece of work is sad or that the composer is sad. It's that the skill is in how the composer expresses that to you through the music.
Yeah.
Because like you can't say that the music itself is sad, because like we said, the music has no, like, it's not a human. There's no, you can't feel anything. But the composer, you also don't know what the composer was feeling when he was writing it. He could have been in a great mood writing this funeral march. You have no idea.
Yeah. Well,
you know, outside
I could be, I'm pulling this out of my ass, so I could be completely wrong.
Yeah.
But isn't the like funeral march, isn't that from like something, or no, am I thinking about Here Comes the Bride? I don't know. I know that there's some like funeral dirge that comes from like some opera where the context of the scene is like not a funeral or something.
Yeah, I forgot what that is. I mean, Here Comes the Bride. I think that's like, it's like from someone wrote it for like a Shakespeare staging, which is why it's like from Romeo and Juliet. Is it? It's not Tchaikovsky. I forgot who it is. I'm probably now I'm looking stupid to all the listeners out there. But yeah, he says music is the paradigm of aesthetic art. It possesses structural qualities, and describing music in emotive terms is to attribute properties to it. Most stuff about music, again leading it to fashion, is about its appropriateness or its context, and so we can be concerned about sadness about the music if it is in a sad symphony or a sad opera, you know. But in general, emotiveness, expressiveness is usually a praise. Like we uphold this as a good making feature. Like the fact that it can express something is what makes music a viable art. And then the last part is about ascribing what Cercello, a different philosopher, says about properties of qualitative degree, where the property in question should be able to be possessed to a greater or lesser degree. So it's got to be like a spectrum, and it has to be about beauty or non-beauty. And so like squareness can't be a PQD because there's no degree of squareness. It is either a square or it's not. So it's like kind of like where formality to me doesn't really mean anything, because it's like you're either formal or you're not formal. I guess though technically there are spectrums to formality, so maybe that's not right.
Well, but I mean, I guess if we're talking about like cultural expression, like if everyone, even though we know that it's like clothing can't really like it has it like in a vacuum. If we went to like a culture of space aliens or something, or evil robots perhaps, and
which is better.
Yeah, exactly. And we had like a dude in like a hoodie and a dude in like a button up and tie. They wouldn't necessarily be able to like immediately recognize like the difference between the two clothing or something like that, or like not like the difference in formality. But obviously everyone around here reads like wearing ties is very dressed up. So
it's a cultural
so even if we don't think that it's formal, because everyone else recognizes that as formal, do you think that makes a difference?
We'll get into that. We'll get into the competency of the viewer later on here. But yeah, the PQD thing here, an example is petrified wood. It can be beautiful in terms of smoothness because it can possess that to a high degree. It is, or you can say it can't be completely beautiful because the color or pattern might be inferior. But you can't use porousness, because porousness is a inherent defect of wood. And so expressive properties can be considered a PQD, like the amount of how expressive it can be used as a qualifier of beauty. And then we can also use that for multiple things, like how much of it is is expressive of ivy or expressive of whatever, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
It is not the property that is beautiful, but the way the artist handles it, which I said earlier. Like anger can be beautifully portrayed. Like the emotion is beautiful because of the inherent skill that the composer has in doing it. So like slouch is not it's not sloppy. It's slouch because of the way you're being sloppy or whatever, and we'll get into that. And so yeah, so basically at the end of it, he just upholds the idea that contour and convention are ways that music can be expressive, and that this is what makes it good. Which is why you have like an outdoor quality of the horn, you have like a peasant quality of the oboe, you have a martial, like a militaristic feel of the trumpet, and these are expressive in both contour because it sounds like that thing, and also conventional because it plays into the culture that we have. And so to emote over music is to hear what one's musical culture conditions one to hear. This is what you were saying, Spencer. The emotive color of music is as much a part of the aesthetic surface of the sound. And you can't deny this. You can't deny this because because to declare this a pejorative or to be a negative in a musical criticism environment would be to express zeal in the exact opposite of it. To deny the existence of a very real and tangible in terms of like hearing it and engaging with it. To deny this palpable quality within music. And so even if you can't answer expressive questions completely, it doesn't mean that the answers can't be satisfactory. Because to argue against an asshole, he didn't say that word, but I am. Like, what would be a complete answer? Like, what does a complete answer sound like? And the thing is, with this kind of stuff, we just don't know. He says these are philosophical scare tactics in lieu of a real argument. And so, lastly, here about competency, he says, what would happen if someone insisted that blues is not sad at all and is instead cheery? And he says, that's not a matter of taste. It's not a matter of whether you like blues or not. This is a matter of questioning the person's musical competence. You have to be, first off, you have to be a member of the musical culture in which the blues flourishes in order to hear the nuances of blues. And you must be adequately prepared to hear music and not just sound, which I love that quote. You have to take it as fashion and not just clothes.
Yeah.
And so any attempt to understand how we hear expressiveness in music must assume that the listener is actually trying to understand and is a musically competent person. It must be granted from the start. It is impossible to imagine musical competence in the absence of the ability to make basic emotive distinctions in music.
So this is basically just good taste, right? It's like people.
I mean, he's saying, yeah. Well, I think it's like maybe it's like knowledge versus taste, right? You have to have the reference. I mean, I guess I don't know. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you haven't come to hear the sadness of the blues, it is hard to imagine that you are a competent listener. And as a result, you could also show him the resemblance of the blues to expressive features of human beings, right? Like sad, anger, whatever. And if he can't hear that, then maybe he just can't read human beings and therefore is not a good source for this.
You know what this is making me think of? And you're going to love this, Ethan. It's a scene with Robert California and Andy, where I think it's like Andy's like, who's your favorite Iron Chef? And then Robert California is like, it's not about the chef, it's about the ingredients. I feel like you don't understand food at all. Like,
that's really good.
I saw that clip like on a scrolling by on Instagram. I'm like, you know what? That's pretty good. Robert California is a funny character.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, I love that guy. This
is gonna be an Office fan cast.
Eventually we're gonna get
Jenna
there.
Fisher and Angela Kinsey.
Hell yeah, dude.
They're gonna be a big podcasting family.
Yeah. So anyway, one cannot be given relevant musical abilities just to fail in one place and succeed somewhere else. To fail to read musical expressiveness is to fail to read expressiveness in general. And I love that. And so, again, the whole idea is that expressiveness is a valid point of criticism and a metric for good music. And basically, music criticism does not need to be inhuman to be respectable. Mm-hmm. And emotive description must be made respectable in the eyes of the learned, so that it can stand alongside technical description of music as a valid analytic tool. If criteria of music expressiveness can be identified with those similar to human expression, then these criteria can provide a rational foundation for the emotive criticism of music. And I know we're already we're like 45 minutes in, but like reading this was like the craziest thing for me. I was like, holy shit, this is so good. I'm sure, and this was written in like the 70s or released in like the 1980. So written in the 70s, published in the 80s. And it's like, I'm sure now there's been plenty of musical discourse where this stuff is pretty common. I think it's easy for us to think like, oh wow, that, you know, and I'm sure even before this book, people were like, oh, it sounds so sad. And people were like, well, that's good, right? So being able to kind of like canonize this was so good. And I'm thinking we don't have to come up with an essay. I mean, I guess I will, but like a theory of like fashion expression or menswear expression. But I think maybe we could using like contour and convention.
Yeah.
Because if we're applying this, I think that every outfit, and we've said this before, every outfit is expressive of something. Mm-hmm. Like you are expressing, again, we're using expression instead of expressive. We're not being fucking semantic people here. Obviously the clothes do not have emotions; they cannot express it, and so the correct term would be expressive.
We're just
his shirt is
shorthand.
Shorthanded, yeah. But you know, it is all clothes will say something about you or about the look itself. Maybe it's a leap to say about you, but you are wearing it, so there's a little bit there. It's not saying that that every funeral march is the same amount of sad. Like not everything is melancholy or everything is this. Like it's not saying like, you know, for example, not every journalist dresses like Spencer. Mm-hmm. But it is about saying that there is kind of a similarity. There's a physiognomy of it that kind of makes sense that you can invoke when making an outfit.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I think, yeah, like even if someone does not care about how they look at all and are just wearing like t-shirts they got from like business conventions that they went to and like, you know, like cargo shorts, that even though they probably were not thinking of like, how am I expressing myself today when I'm getting dressed, it does express something about them. It's not a good or bad quality, but it expresses something that, you know, they just don't care about clothes, I guess.
Yeah. You know, like this whole thing, what this kind of talks about is whether or not you have the references to pull from, because it's like I could see how a detractor of this would say, well, if you weren't around a bunch of guys with suits, you probably wouldn't recognize this guy is dressed down, right? Like the guy in the cargo shorts, right? But it's kind of like with music, where like if all you heard was minor mode music and you never heard major, maybe minor mode music would sound happy to you. Mm. But in order to create distinctions for the sake of defining expression, you need to be aware of alternate modes of expression.
Yeah.
And this kind of reminds me of like with Marx, where he's talking about like we need people to see like different types of status or whatever. Like we need to educate people on like this like alternate modes and everything. That's the only way people can see what the path forward is. Like it doesn't have to be just one way.
I was thinking not necessarily like political philosophy, but you know, I'm an expert here because I've taken one semester of a aesthetic philosophy class that I didn't 100% pay attention in. But I know we talked about this like a tiny bit in our episode about taste and aesthetics, but I think it was Kant that wrote like a long essay on aesthetic taste that we cited at least a little bit in the essay, and it talks about a lot about the same points. It's like it's just that you need to have an education and you need to have background knowledge to really have an understanding of the thing that you're judging and to really develop taste. And I don't know, I like I said, I think there's there's a lot to be said to having that like historical context, so you can know like what you're expressing, like how you want to express it, all that stuff. But yeah,
that makes sense. You just need, with any kind of art, it only exists when you have a multitude of references and education for it. Like not in an elitist way, but like just because it's always in conversation with something.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. It's the same thing with outfits, where, you know, in a world now where there's so many of it, there's so much niche subcultures and different design and micro genres and whatever, like you need to be able to differentiate. You know to when you get into the nuances of emotion, and I think it's up to you as the dresser to express that nuance with the tools that you have. And that's, and like they said, like about like how anger can be handled beautifully by the composer. It is up to the composer, you, for the outfits, to express the specific emotions that you have. And then of course it's also can be judged by the people watching it, but like you still need to be competent with it, within that.
Going back to some of the criticism on the book, I know that you shared a link that's
kind
of a summary of the text, but also kind of a criticism or like a review. One of the criticisms that I thought was interesting was he talks about how, of course, music can have expressive qualities, but the person writing this is kind of arguing that it doesn't really matter why, like the reason for these expressive qualities does not really matter. He says it's like expression is a unitary or vaguely unitary phenomenon. The meaning of music is sad does not change depending on the cause. My saying it is raining might be caused by my seeing puddles, or it might be caused by raindrops falling my face, but the meaning of it is raining does not change between those two instances. I don't know. Can we apply that at all to fashion? Like, I know I don't want this to be just like a music podcast, but I did think that I thought that point was interesting when I read it last night.
Yeah, I don't know. It's what would that be with like? I mean, like like the presence of a tie doesn't inherently make it formal. Like, I mean,
or like again, or it's like I think maybe you could also say the opposite, where it's like the presence of 3 patch pockets on a sport coat doesn't make it casual in the eyes of like most people. You know,
that's true. Yeah. Or even just like, or even like this is kind of what Aldous' point with like Slouch was, right? Where like just because I can feel like I'm casual and put my hands in my pockets doesn't mean that someone else might still be like, that guy looks like an asshole at the bar. You know, even though I know I'm not, and my friends know I'm not, and the bartenders know me, that doesn't stop a random person from doing that. But that's kind of like what happens, right, with any kind of art where like and the book doesn't go into that, which is like when you put it out there, like you are still opening yourself up to people who are uneducated. However, my argument back to Aldous and I guess to this is like, you don't just make a statement like that. Like, I know it's like maybe it's like a philosophically sound or ideologically sound argument to be like, oh yeah, it's raining, and you could say it because of any of this other evidence. But that's not where truth stops, right? Truth can be built upon. So like, if you keep walking and there is no rain falling from the sky, then you would then know it's not raining. Yeah. Like the more information you have will negate or uphold the initial criticism or the initial statement, the thesis statement that you're trying to make here.
Yeah. And I guess we could also use as a defense anytime someone criticizes our outfits is like, well, you're clearly too uneducated to know what I'm going for when what things I'm expressing here. Like, if you knew more,
you just wouldn't get it.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it. I'm like the Joker.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? We do talk about how fashion competence is important. That's why cores and like starter packs or like generalizations, uniforms are so important. Like, reducing things down to that kind of a thing is what helps people understand the nuances of fashion and expression. Like, I don't think that's, and a lot of people hate it because I get people hate it because it's like the internet, but I also think that you can't just say Western music. Like, what does that mean? Like, are we talking like rock and roll? Are we talking like, orchestra music that was made by American composers? Like, you do need genres.
Yeah.
And each of these things have a sound quality to them, right? Like pop music today has like 4 chords, right? And now pop music has kind of like an R&B feel to it versus like 2000s pop music, which had more of like an alt rock feel to pop music back in those days. And then we have like dad, like what makes dad rock different than surf rock? And I'm sure to a regular person, maybe not, but like to an enthusiast or to someone who is an actual participant in those subcultures, you would be able to know. Yeah. And so again, it's all about kind of just educating people. And I definitely think we're going to get there. Not to make this like a forecasting thing, but I think the more that this stuff happens, the more we'll be able to have these conversations. Yeah. But that's why it's important to use expressiveness as a metric for what makes a good outfit.
Yeah, and I think bringing it back to music as a certified jazz hound, as a real J-head, I can definitely say that that's true, and that's why I was so offended by that guy who said that music without lyrics is like incomplete or is formless or anything like that. Because listen, I love a lot of instrumental jazz, and I love how it's able to express things and emotions and feelings without words. I think that's really cool, and I think in a lot of ways that's way more impressive than just writing a song with like lyrics about being sad and then being like, yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you're reading, the guy reading starts to say like, oh, like, well, how do you know like it's the music and not just the images in your head that come up with emotion? It's not the music itself. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that as someone who likes not jazz, but I mean, I do like jazz, but orchestra music in general, where like there's literally nothing there, there's no text. I think it definitely applies where expression. You don't need lyric. You don't need to be told explicitly.
Yeah.
But yeah, bring it to menswear. I think with the contour and convention thing, I think that certain outfits, it's good when you use contour. For example, I wrote here like slouchy outfits feel. Okay, I put sad. Maybe the idea is relaxed, because when you are relaxed, your shoulders are sunken. You're laying down, and a slouchy suit or slouchy outfit, baggy clothes, whatever, can be expressive of that, versus a powerful look with structure. Like structure looks powerful because it's built up, it's rigid. You have that can also be a look. And so like if if these expressive qualities are what you are aiming for, then it should be a metric. It should be considered in how in how good your outfit is, if that's the goal here. Because again, all outfits, all clothing can be expressive. And with convention, I think we can obviously there with like how it aligns with like formality levels, how it aligns with cultural stuff or context, or even like this evokes like military clothing. This is what you would wear in the military. This is what you would wear to a job thing because of social convention. And so ultimately, it really is just all about how effective you are about communicating this personality or your goals. And I mean, I'm curious, like, what do you like, MJ? I know we just had our episodes with both of you guys, but like, how do you guys think, like, for expressive qualities, what do you try and do? Like, what do you like to, what do you like to express, and then how do you express it?
Yeah, I mean, we have here in the notes, and we said it before, how like, expressing like our interests through our clothes and stuff like that is something that we sometimes take into account. But I also kind of think that having, I don't know, that kind of ambiguity for your expressiveness is kind of fun. What I mean is like, like being a guy that's not just outright saying I'm into this nerdy stuff, but like kind of
You're not
like,
wearing
Yeah,
the
a
Triforce
nuanced
tee.
way.
yeah,
Yeah.
but then it's like, oh, this guy's also into that stuff and dresses like a different way. It's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's easy to say this music is sad when the lyric of the music is "I'm so sad, baby." Like I think, I mean, you can do that. There's I guess. See, my thing is, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Like, this is where I'm like kind of like a hedge on the whole. There's no bad outfit, if if you're really being. But I think that there is more skill when you're able to communicate that with alternative methods.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's the onion. There's layers,
Yeah, glass onion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and being able to express like multiple parts of whether that's like your interests or personality or like whatever is good or interesting. You could say that about music too, right? Like no piece of music is just like, oh, that is, or maybe some is, but it's like that is just a guitar. Yeah, you can listen to a song that's just a guitar, but most of the time it's like
It's
there's
a band.
yeah, it's a band, it's an ensemble.
I mean,
It's-
I listen to a lot of
even-
solo piano. I feel like
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, don't knock my Rachmaninoff piano stuff. Come on.
No,
now.
absolutely. I'm not.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love
But
piano.
No, I know. Yeah.
But even taking that piano thing, right? There's you're not just listening just to the melody hand, right?
Mhm.
It's you.
Oh
Have,
yeah, it's a
there's-
whole. There's a lot.
There's
in there.
multiple parts.
It's not just like a single note being played.
Yeah, you're not just. It's not just one thing over and over again.
Yeah.
Uh,
What if I just listened to a lot of like beginning piano recitals of people playing like hot cross buns and like chopsticks or whatever?
Those Suzuki. I don't know if you know, but like there's a Suzuki piano book that's like for beginners. It's just
Yeah.
like 1, 2, and 3, and like you do it that way.
yeah.
That's all I listen to.
But yeah, no. What about you, Spencer? Like, what about like? I mean, or what moves do you guys think are the most? What expressive moves can people do within menswear? I think.
I don't know. I feel like I talked about how in my episode I like having I agree with MJ where I think it's sometimes fun to like subvert things, and it's fun when it's like there's things where it's like we've talked about this, the huge phenomenon of classic menswear guys who are like metalheads or punk rockers and shit like that.
Mhm.
But I mean, like we said, my taste I think is very predictable based on like how I look, and I don't necessarily, at least I kind of like that about my style, I guess. I said I like how there's a whole like unified aesthetic and like artistic world, I guess. But I don't know. I think, as I keep saying, I think a lot of the ways that I express things comes from like nods to vintage clothing or like historical references and stuff like that. Like it's I've been trying to like, especially in the last couple years. I mean, I have like mostly the same wardrobe and stuff, but I have been trying to stop. I've been trying to figure out like, okay, what's like a good like base outfit for Spencer? Like I don't like looking radically different like every single day, because I like kind of having, you know, like a something to ground myself, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I like having like a base expression that kind of ties everything together.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not like you're having no expression, right? But I
Mhm.
guess, and I initially wrote that the worst outfits for me are outfits that are not expressive, but maybe that's not true. I think maybe it's just basic expression. But I
Mhm.
think that when you get down to it, I think that a cohesive expression is different than just base expression.
Yeah, cohesive
Um,
is a better word.
Yeah, and I think that's because obviously when it comes down to it, like with the music aspect, right? Like it's there. It can be said that music is not just that it can be melancholic, and melancholic has its own connotations that make it different than just general sadness. And I
Mhm.
think that with a good outfit, for me, it's like it can make you feel a bunch of different things, or it can express a bunch of different moods and genres and everything, and that's what makes a good outfit a good outfit. Um, and while it can be said that the competency um is hard, right, if someone is not competent to read those things, I feel like not every listener of a symphony will be able to hear all the nuances that they're doing, but they can still feel something from it. And I
Mhm.
think that at some points, you do stuff. I think we all dress for the basic idea of not being naked, but I still think we also like do some nods that are for us and for other enthusiasts to kind of recognize. Maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily for them, but there are definitely stuff in there thrown that can help out. Like I can still be slouchy, but then someone can go like, "Oh, but swelled edges," like there's something there to
Yeah.
that. Where like it doesn't. It's a small piece that contributes to the whole thing, but it's not the whole thing in itself. It doesn't.
Mhm.
It's not just like an isolated thing. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, ultimately, right? Like this is why people just need to recognize this stuff. People need to know, like it would be nice if everyone who saw the outfit was able to be like, okay, well, that guy's doing, like, you're doing Ivy, or you're doing this, like that way it's not just one base level thing.
Mhm.
I don't know how to get there, but I feel like we will, just because of the amount of fashion enthusiasts that we have. Like I remember like when coastal grandma and old money became a thing to kind of like put ivy, or I guess that's kind of different than ivy, but like elements of ivy and prep into like the limelight of like, okay, like what elements can you do? And then like when I'm watching on TikTok where guys like, oh yeah, like, I want to be punk, so I'm like wearing the like Doc Martens, but like also I want to have a little bit of coastal grandma, so they wear like a cable knit sweater with like a shirt underneath. I'm like, okay, like they're expressing
Yeah.
multiple things in this outfit, so I feel like we are gonna get there.
Yeah,
And
because I mean,
maybe yeah.
it's I sometimes I see people online say that it's like talking about how it's like, oh wow, people love putting all these like fashion things into boxes now with all these like tiny subcultures and micro genres or whatever. But I feel like if you read through like old apparel arts ads, like you'll see there's a lot of the same things where it's like
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
like coastal resort wear, or this is what you wear to go golfing in like fucking Scotland and all this stuff. And obviously it's different because
Yeah.
now this is I think what's different now is all these different styles can be kind of worn divorced of context, but it's yeah, it's just the same thing. It's just much less tied to time, place, and occasion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, fashion competence isn't just people need to know that like if you're not, you don't have to go to fashion school to know this stuff. I think everyone has a very basic sense of like what looks make sense for certain things,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that the more you build on that, the more multidisciplinary aware you are of like different genres and appreciation, a cognizance of multiple styles, it definitely helps further this communication because I think that taste only builds, right? I think taste always develops, and you have taste, which is a curation. If we go back to my episode, based on picking things out of multitudes, right? And being aware of those multitudes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so expression is just about making that educated choice and invoking those things. Um, that's why we have to talk about culture, because if we're going to shape the culture of it, we need to address it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that it's not just about expressing fun or formality, but like subtle things like, yeah, so like appreciating history, um,
Mm-hmm.
and everything. I definitely like the apparel arts example though, because it's like that is what we do. We just have different versions of it nowadays, or that we do it. We have this is the errand look. When you're this is the look when you're going to the store, but you're still trad. I think like the base level is like classic menswear. Then you have like these things, um, that that help guide you toward those expressions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that yeah, I mean to sum up, I guess, right? Like I think the accuracy of your expression is what matters. Like I think it's good to be introspective, because it's like when you evaluate music, it's like when I'm writing music, and I don't do this very often anymore. But like I'm always like, am I feeling what I want to feel? Am I hearing the contour? Am I hearing the convention? With like a love theme, does it sound like love to me, and does it sound like other love songs? Like those are two different things, and it's like I want to be able to do that. And I think with clothing, it's about being masterful at both of those,
And so
right? Like if
it always requires a little bit of stealing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean it's all referential. I mean music is referential. Um and so like yeah, with menswear, it's like okay, if I want to look relaxed and I want to look ivy, so like what can I do to make that happen? Um like point collars are kind of ivy, but like a button down collar is still casual. So like maybe you invoke that, but then you wear it with like a DB for different references, right? You kind of
Mm-hmm.
have to combine all of this other stuff to make it good. And that's why at the end of the day, it's like a good outfit is whether or not you are executing that vision. And maybe people just need to say when they post an outfit online is this is what I want to look like, and here is me trying to do it. That way we can talk about it, because otherwise we're just debating on our preconceptions. We're basing it off of our own cultural competence, and some of us may not be aware of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard to imagine that now because I feel like everyone knows it because of the internet.
Uh-huh.
but it's also like yeah, I mean it's hard for someone to like look at something now and be like, well, that's just bad. I feel like there are reasons um why it is bad. And I think we need to like dive deeper. It's just like with music where like there's technically bad, and then there's like expressively unfavorable. And so it's like I think that, you know, wearing like, there's a difference between like wearing a Ludlow suit, which I think is just designed badly, and then wearing like dunks with a suit.
Yeah.
And I no shade to the guys out there who are wearing dunks with suits, but I feel like there's something about like the harmony of it or whatever that just doesn't really work, unless the expression is you want to look like a guy who plays basketball but also happens to be wearing a suit at that same time. Then maybe it does make sense.
He was thrown onto the court right after work, and he's like, "Well, I got my sneakers in my bag."
Yeah. Right, but then even if even that straw man, it's like, well, you can't fault him for that, you know. Yeah. And like my definition of what's good or bad doesn't really matter, because that's exactly what he's trying to express. So that's why it's like menswear expression is the ultimate form of criticism on an outfit. And that's why it's always about, like, you know, critiquing the actual expressions that they're trying to do. Like, you know, if you wrote a piece of music and you said, I want this to feel sad, but it doesn't sound like that, then I think you failed. Right? Like that's what it is. So in terms of fashion, it's like, if you're trying to express Ivy, but you're wearing a t-shirt, low-rise jeans, and Vans, I wouldn't say that that's particularly Ivy, you know. It might fail at the PQDs, those qualifier, those qualitative stuff of what makes Ivy, because it fails those things. It fails those metrics. Versus like if your thing was, I want to look Ivy casual, and you go, okay, Breton striped tee, 501, or like some kind of straight leg jean with boat shoes or like penny loafers, that fulfills more of it there, and therefore it becomes a better outfit because that's what you are trying to express. Mm-hmm. So I think that, you know,
I mean, this also goes back to like one of our biggest points about, like, if you want to look good, you have to have a very clear idea of what you're trying to do. And it can't just be like that. That's why I think it's really hard to go from the mindset of like getting into fashion because it's like, oh, because like I want a girlfriend or I want a promotion at work and stuff like that. Because that's not really like what you want to look like. That's like a desired outcome.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I feel like that's the biggest thing that's really difficult for guys to get into fashion, is because maybe they have like an idea of, I want to be stylish or I want to wear cool clothes, but again, that's not really like a what do you look like kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the POV is inherently important. It's like, it's like if you to bring this to music the opposite way of like, oh, I want to make music people clap to. It's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, like are they clapping because it's sad, or are they clapping because it's
so fast? Impressive to hear someone play it.
No, they're clapping because it's over. They only clap at the end.
Yeah. But it's like, you know, with that, like, you need to express something, and you need to make these choices. And I think it's so clear. It's so clear in music. It's so clear in art. Why can't people do this with fashion? Mm-hmm. You know, this is why, if anything, I know, again, this is kind of just expanding on what we've talked about before, but this is why expression is so important. And it's not that it's impossible. It's that you can recognize that there are things that people can feel or that can think from looking at your outfit. And so that just about intentionally invoking those things. You know, that's why, I mean, the companion to this would be the POV and the cinematic dressing article. It's about like, those are the real qualifiers of what make your outfit good, because if that's the goal you set out to do, you just have to do it well, and then you've got it, right? Mm-hmm. Like the accuracy of the expression does matter. It is not just about the technical. Like it can't be like, oh, this looks good because it fits well. Because I'm like, sure, but what does it look like? Like what are you feeling when you see this? It, you know, at the very least, all of this should be considered together. It can't just be about fit. It can't just be about the cost or the quality. It is about, the whole thing is about expression. Mm-hmm. I am the Peter Kivy, whatever the fuck his name is, of menswear. I am this guy. He died in 2017. So
that's the year that you were born.
Yeah,
you could be reincarnated.
I'm 6 years old.
I'm a damn 6-year-old.
But on the last part about like one cannot be given relevant musical abilities and fail in one place and succeed elsewhere. It's like, yeah, like if someone cannot get what I'm trying to do, then this is my elitist take. It's like they just don't get it. Like they just, and it's not for them, right? Like I remember like there's a TikTok, I think I mentioned this in the last one, where it's like all music is for the listener, but the first listener is the player. And so it's like if you start from that mindset, it's like it's got to be relevant to these things.
Mhm.
And the great part about clothing is that when you wear it, it can be for everyone to see. Like some people might find it as like a bad sign because that makes you open, ideologically open to any kind of projection. But you could just say it's not for them, man. It's not for you. Like, yeah, it sucks at music. Like you know, like you wouldn't expect a guy to go to a rock concert and be like, I hate rock music. Like, why are you fucking there, dude?
Uh-huh.
I get that that's a hard part about fashion where you can't be immune to those people, but at the very least, you can be philosophically superior and say that you're just smarter than them.
You're intellectually superior.
Just always make the situation that you have the high ground, and
You're gonna beat them in a battle of the brains.
MJ kind of said the really good part. It's like just be in a good scenario. Like don't be stupid. Like don't walk to like a fucking metal concert with a tuxedo unless you're like Tony Sylvester. Then you're like you get a free pass. But even then, I feel like Tony Sylvester wouldn't wear that to a metal show. But yeah, I mean the whole idea here is the kind of or that MJ's saying about like putting yourself in the right context helps. But also the opposite, create your own context or help educate people like we are with expression, why it's super important. And yeah, hopefully you guys found this interesting. I mean, I thought I think the book was like really good. I've been really enjoying reading about music and kind of seeing how it applies. Because again, for music for me is a hobby. Like it's not my career. It is something I do on the side. And when I'm writing something, I do want it to express certain qualities. And I think that's what makes it good. Like that's what it, like, you know, in both the contour of how it sounds like or how it literally expresses the emotion, and how it relates to the cultural context of convention. And I think the same thing with clothing. It's a balance between the two. One cannot be more than the other. They also don't negate each other. And just because one person can't read it doesn't mean that this theory is false. It just means that they might not be the right audience for it, or they lack that understanding.
Yeah.
You know, like, again, you don't know that I'm being casual with my loafers, but I do, and this other guy does. So at the very least, it's equal, but I can still lean on the fact that I know what I'm expressing, and that's what makes it important.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess you could also say it's like, even though people might understand, like you could argue that if you look at a loafer, there are visual qualities that make it appear more casual. Like especially
yes,
yeah, like it's like
contour.
Yeah, exactly. I guess like the fact that there are no laces. It's like the kind of like, especially if you're talking about like a leisure hand sewn type of thing where it's
the stitching and everything.
Stitching, and it's kind of like more rounded and stuff and all that stuff. It's not as sharp.
Yes.
And so even if you are like a person who has never worn, you know, not sneakers, like theoretically, if you showed them like a really sharp like Oxford or then like a loafer, like most of the time they might be able to pick out which one is the more casual shoe.
Well, this is, and damn it, I feel like I was trying to end this, but we just got to a totally new-eyed thing here. This is really important. Maybe this will be the clip that everyone will pull. But this is what I'm talking. There's expression in garments, and it might not be emotion, but it has propensity to do it. And the thing that you said about loafers, I mean, that's why it's like when you like why a long collar has more expression than a short one, because there's more stuff to play with. A long collar can still be pressed really sharply and be stiff. A long collar can also be super soft. And those qualities are expressive of things that we recognize, you know, or like why does like a 3-roll 2 look more like casual than like a straight 3 button, because like the roll and the lapel, like it's folded over.
And I mean,
you know?
if you read about like the new trends in like menswear among guys who are not into classic menswear, like I don't know if I was reading something where some like designer or some stylist was talking about how the new thing that all our clients are asking for is suits with like as little detail as possible. So like no pockets, no visible like pick stitching or swelled edges and stuff like that. A lot of guys are doing single button jackets or like no button jackets now. like shirts without plackets, you know, like shirts with hidden buttons, all this stuff. And so I think like that's an effort to look like slick and modern and clean and stuff like that. So I mean, obviously I think there is uh people recognize details like you know,
Expressive details is what you're
expressive
saying. Yeah.
details like patch pockets or like 3 roll 2 or like the roll of the lapel and stuff like that. I think people do recognize those as things that make something like more casual maybe, or like not as like fussy and not, you know, stuff like that. So
Yeah, I
they
mean, the whole thing about music, right? Like where like when you feel happy, the tune literally leaps, right? So it's like there's something about like, oh, when something is slouchy or casual or you know, somber, like there are literal design details that you can use to invoke those expressive features.
Mhm.
And again, like we said with PQDs, the more with these expressive features, these are good making qualities. These are things that you can use to evaluate how good something can be, with those features involved. Yeah, there's a lot like why, you know, and it's not because I think most people just think about color, right? Like, oh, it's happy because you're wearing a lot of color, you know, like yeah, but you can also be like there's other stuff to it. So for some reason, I feel like a shawl collar feels happy to me because it's like
Yeah.
rounded, like it feels like it's nice and
I mean, that's
you
like,
know.
it's like you always see people like, I mean, I just say this because I wear, that's my home wear, but it's like, yeah, you see fucking like grandpa or someone like relaxing at home with a shawl collar cardigan. But of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. Like you could also say it's like, well, a lot of hobos stuff like that wore it during the Depression. But I don't know.
And my grandpa's a hobo.
Yeah, I had a point, but I forgot it. Maybe, maybe this will be so we don't go on another half hour.
Yeah,
Maybe we
yeah,
gotta.
but yeah, I think, you know, if people were to think about not just about the genres you're expressing, but like as much said at the very end of this, the expressive features of the literal details you have in your clothing, it feels like you've unlocked something, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like where like shoulders, cloth. I mean that's kind of what we were describing. It's like the difference between like, oh, when I wear a double-breasted suit, I want to evoke this like closed up
Yeah.
manner, you know, versus like a, you know, a single breasted or whatever. And then of course when you have a double breasted unbuttoned, that has a different look to it. That expresses something else. Um, and so yeah, that's such a great point about, you know, just finding. I mean, again, the whole theme of it is just finding the expression and everything, and why that's important and why you should invoke it.
Hmm.
That should be it. That's the ultimate mantra of this episode, and I
Yeah.
hope you like it. Um, if you guys, you know, again, thank you for listening. If you guys want more,
Mm.
we're, you know, we do this episode every 2 weeks, although we take a break every 3 months. And I think we just ended period 1 of 2023 with this
That's
episode.
right.
You know,
P1.
you won.
The first
Um,
arc.
and yeah, if you guys want to support the podcast, we gladly will accept the $5 a month that they can give us at patreon.com/downdirection. It gives you access to our Discord as well as our bonus episodes, and those bonus episodes come out once a month regardless. We do those all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, $5 a month. $10 a month gives you nothing else. I mean, it gives you access to both of those things, but the only extra benefit is we say your name. And there's a really funny name we get to say this time because I think I added them in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. MJ, who are we thanking?
We're thanking our sidecast fanatics: Shane Curry, Philip Gregard, Jarrett Collian, Henrik Wilberg, Alexander Batten, and welcoming Nick Wooster.
Woo! The man himself.
Yeah. Even though I saw the Patreon email and it is definitely not. I'm not gonna expose it. It's the real Nick Wooster, okay?
It's,
the
yeah,
real one.
guys, the real
Allegedly.
Nick Rooster's a fan. It's established
Yeah.
now.
There it is. We'll see if he continues for following months. I think we missed him for MJ's episode, but hey, we got him on this one.
Yeah.
This is what happens when we record episodes in advance, and then I check the Patreon to see what's changed, and I'll go, oh shit, we forgot this guy.
Yeah.
But
bad.
thank you again to everyone. What else? I mean, nothing else going on. Spencer's going to New York. I'm going to. I mean, this episode will come out.
Yeah,
after he's
we'll
back.
Be long
He'll
gone.
be back. Yeah.
Yeah.
This comes back because you're gone. What, March 12th or whatever?
It's March 7th or March 12th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, this comes out the end of March, so you'll be back.
I'll be
already.
back unless I'm not. Maybe maybe I'm trapped over there.
I think you say dead. I'm like, don't say
I could
that.
be dead, but probably not.
Yeah, at that rave.
At the rave, yes.
Okay.
I die at the Babylon party.
There you go. With Tugboat McGuire.
Yeah.
You can follow this podcast at Style and Direction, where we post cool outfits of ourselves sometimes, inspiration stuff, as well as the Sad Head Thursday recaps.
And really quick, I just gotta say, I feel like the guy eating rats is not the scariest thing that was happening in that tunnel.
What was?
The Babylon tunnel, remember how the
No,
bottom
what
level...
what was the
I
scariest
don't know.
thing?
There was the weird like torture dungeon. Like I feel
that's worse. That's worse.
It is kind of like I feel like it's kind of funny that they went down all these levels and they saw all these people get like locked up in cages and like screaming. I mean, it might have been screams of pleasure and pain, but still, like the most horrifying thing that Damon Chazelle can come up with is like a circus strongman eating rats. They had those at freak shows above ground.
It's not. You don't have to be under Los Angeles to do that.
Yeah, there's like, it's not even a sex thing. That's not that freaky.
So you're saying the
sex is the scariest thing you can do.
I'm just saying
like
that
the
it's
levels should have been rearranged there.
Yeah,
if it was going
or
from
like,
the least
or they
bad
should have seen
to
something scarier. Like like he's just asking him to eat more rats. He's not even saying like put it in your ass or something.
Yeah, that's what should have happened. Yeah, like an Ant-Man Thanos situation.
We got to do a Babylon too.
Do we also gotta like rewatch the Great? Are we going to rewatch the Great Gatsby?
We should honestly do like a back-to-back, a double feature of Gatsby and Babylon, because that's East Coast. That's like West Coast Gatsby, I guess, and East Coast Babylon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I couldn't think of another cardinal direction in another movie that it could be.
What's the Northern Babylon or Gatsby? What's a Canadian movie about a wild party? How about the Santa Claus?
That's the most north.
Yeah, exactly. And they had probably party all those elves.
Why don't they have a Santa Claus movie set in the 1920s?
They should. I mean,
then it could be the North Pole Gatsby.
How about this? It's
NPG.
a Santa Claus movie set in the 1920s. Santa Claus, he's just in he's in a brown fur coat or something, and then he sees like a new Coca-Cola ad in the Saturday Evening Post, and he's like, what the fuck? They got me wearing this red coat with the white trim. And he's like, maybe I'll start doing that. And it's all about how Santa got his look.
Hey, Chat GPT, write a menswear movie about Santa Claus. I'm Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer DSO.
And I'm at Aya MJ.
We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.